Hi everyone, welcome to this month's update video. This is the update video for April 2024. So April, to be honest, went quite a lot differently than I expected it would. You might have seen that I posted a picture on YouTube, which was a potential outline for the common root of Ethereal Overflow. But I guess I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So the first thing that happened in April was that the silent column got released. It got released on the 9th of April instead of the 10th because I realized I could release it a day earlier. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do now that the silent column is done? So I did quite a bit of brainstorming and I had decided to work on Ethereal Overflow, which I talked about in my previous update video. And then I was planning a lot of it out. It ended up growing in scope from 3 love interests to 6 and then down to 5. And the potential structure for the common root was very interesting. But then later I decided maybe I would simplify things and do a ladder structure for the common root, which, for those of you who don't know, a ladder structure is actually quite interesting because it's very simple to do, but I feel that it's interesting from a narrative perspective because the way that the silent column did it and the way that other common root structures do it sometimes is basically they have the whole common root and then the common root ends with a fork for each of the love interests. So say the silent column has 4 love interests. So the common root would be one straight line ending in a four-way fork, basically. But the ladder structure is quite interesting because it's basically just one straight line, but as you are getting to know the love interests, the reason it's called a ladder structure is because it's like you're climbing a ladder and it's like, okay, do I get off on floor one, floor two, floor three? And each of those floors is a love interest. So it's kind of interesting because, if you want to pursue the first love interest, then you will probably get to see the events, because they don't all start at the same point in time because of the ladder structure. So you could pursue the first love interest and then experience some of the events that were going to happen later in the common route from sort of a different perspective. And if you pursue the last love interest, then the entire route for that love interest is going to be all new. And besides, I feel like it's generally more realistic. It kind of represents the flow of time better, in my opinion, in general. And also, at the same time, it allows the writer to basically be like, hey, uh, you went through something emotionally resonant with this love interest. Now is a good time to see if you want to be in a relationship with them. You know what I mean? Whereas with a more blocky structure, like I was talking about before, basically it's like, okay, you might go through something emotionally resonant with the love interests, but you won't get the chance to pursue a relationship with them until the designated fork at the end of the entire common route. So I think that the ladder structure is quite elegant and interesting because it's simple but complex at the same time. All that is to say, though, that was a really cool tangent. I like talking about that sort of thing. I'm going to tell you about what happened in the rest of the month of April. So basically, long story short, I was taking a look at how the silent column, I think that it is well done for an indie title, but I think that it is putting people off a little bit on Steam because the artwork isn't quite super high quality and the music also isn't quite professional grade. So I think people will be looking at that and tend to be like, they might see the artwork at a glance, they might hear the music at a glance, And even though the story is 260,000 words long and certainly well worth the price, in my opinion, at a glance, that might put people off from buying it. And then the subject matter is also kind of touchy. It's not as easy to consume as, like, uh, I haven't played it, but just off the top of my head, something like Nekopada or something of that nature, where it seems like the general idea is just, hey, aren't cat girls cute? You're with cat girls. And again, I haven't played Nekopada, so I don't know how accurate that is. I'm sure there's some character drama and so on. But, you know, the Silent Column explores some more maybe topics that would rub people the wrong way, shall I say. And then also at the same time, it understandably was marked as 18 plus, which is because it does have some sexual content, and it does have some mentions of like darker themes like suicide and so on. So it makes a lot of sense that they would categorize it as 18 and up, but that means that, how should I put it? That means that I'm getting blocked off from like a huge amount of the Steam like player base. So basically, to cut a long story short, I'm glad that this version of the Silent Column is out there, but I would like to tap into that bigger user base. So I was thinking that here's my opinion going forward. So first of all, I think that it would be a good idea for me to have another visual novel that is shorter and also safe for work so that people would be able to uh, get familiar with my name, pick up the title, because people would probably expect a visual novel with my quality of artwork and my quality of music to have a less intimidating price tag. Again, the silent column is 260,000 words, so the price tag is appropriate. But at a glance, I feel like people would be more comfortable with it if there were just a few shorter, cheaper titles, which still are very much my own and well written to the best of my ability, but just wouldn't, uh, have people shying away from them because of glancing at the artwork or whatever. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to work on, as opposed to Ethereal Overflow, which was going to be a large project that was going to take a significantly long amount of time and have a rather a price tag comparable to that of the Silent Column, though I was planning on it being safe for work. I do like Ethereal Overflow and I like the ideas that I have in there. But I'm going to be putting it off to the side and working on a shorter project. So I'm going to be working on a visual novel that I think I mentioned in an early video called A Lily from the Lightless Water. And A Lily from the Lightless Water is sort of a just a like short one love interest sort of love story. I'm planning on it being around 50,000 words to like maybe 70,000 words, somewhere in that range. And it is focusing on a plant girl named Leafil, who the main character, Ron, meets in a bay um, by his house. He like lives near a bay and he like meets her in the mist and it's about their relationship. And I like this story. I've had it in one form or another in my head and on paper for quite some time now, probably a few years. And because of its short scope, not only will it be taking less time to develop, and not only will the price tag be smaller, which is more attractive, obviously, but also because it is a smaller story, I can do something that I've wanted to do for a long time now, which is just make a visual novel that is entirely CGs, because it's relatively short. So I was thinking instead of character sprites, I would just have all of them be all of the images be CGs, different facial expressions for the CGs, different variations of the CGs, so that If you guys know me from way back in the day when I was working on a castle on an island, I was sort of experimenting with something similar to this, where basically if a character is in a location, instead of having like the background and that character's sprite, it would just be a CG of them at that location or something like that. I was thinking of doing something similar with A Lily from the Lightless Water, and it should work pretty well, being as it's a short story. So yeah, so I'm going to be working on that. But also, I wanted to mention that I would like to tap into that larger user base. So I think it would be a good idea to take some time to develop a safe for work version of the silent column. I'd still have the original version of the silent column up on Steam, but if I had a safe for work version, then basically it's just like it wouldn't be quite the same because especially I think of Thidria. Thidria's root is more like physically intimate and stuff. Um, but I would like to be like, look, part of the issue is that the silent column right now, as it is in its like more intended form, um, not only is it getting blocked off from a large portion of the audience that might well enjoy the story, but also the portion of the audience that it is catching the eyes of are people who are browsing the 18 plus section. So they might literally just be looking for kind of more smutty stuff. And like I said in my last update video, the silent column isn't really porn, but at the same time, like it does have some nudity in it, it does have some sexual situations in it. So it makes sense that it would be under that umbrella. But the idea is that I'm blocking myself off from an audience that could be enjoying it, while at the same time making it visible to an audience that may well just want something different, so they may not like it at all. Uh, so yeah, I think a safer work version would be a good idea to have in addition to the normal version. And besides, as much as sometimes I think about being against censorship and all that, when I was growing up, I grew up on the anime adaptation of Canon, the 2006 version. And originally, Canon was a visual novel and still is, obviously. And it has adult content in it. So, like, if it weren't for any kind of censorship whatsoever, I wouldn't have been able to grow up with that because it would just be adult only, right? Because it would have had sex scenes in it and so on. And Canon 2006 made a big impression on me as a kid. So, anyway, that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on making a Lily from the Lightless Water, putting Ethereal Overflow on hold. I'll get to it at some point in the future. I do like the idea. I planned it a lot. I like the different plot elements, the character interactions. I actually really quite like what I have going with Ethereal Overflow. It's just a big project. So probably at some later point in time, not right now. And I'm going to be working on a safe for work version of the silent column, just censoring a few things and putting. Then I'd have two versions up on Steam that people could enjoy. So yeah. Well, that's basically all I have to say. Uh, in addition to, well, to be honest, like making a different version of the silent column, like speaking of like how long things take, just going in and censoring a few things probably won't take that much time. So that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say. So thank you guys for listening. If you have any comments or whatever, feel free to share them in the comment section, of course. And I'll have the link to my Steam page in the description. You can check out the Silent Column, and then later you'll be able to check out my other games that I release on Steam. So take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next update video.